Hi everyone, Stepan here. I'm back after a long time and some chess. Sorry about the long break, but after my last tournament finished, I had a lot of technical issues. I couldn't record because there were some problems with my equipment, but that's now resolved, I hope. And I can finally get back to recording videos. Once more, you should know by now that I always try to focus on chess and basically devote most of my time to it, and then the channel and the videos come second. So it was like that this time as well. I just finished playing the European Amateur Chess Championship, which finished about 10 days ago, and I should say that rating wise and result wise, this was probably the best tournament I ever played, and I'm really happy. I was really happy after it finished, especially since my previous tournaments went pretty poorly. The last one I played before this was the Pula Open, which I actually quit after 6 rounds. I was devastated, and I basically didn't play any classical chess for 2 months. Played no rated games for 2 months. So yeah, this felt good. Okay, I'm going to be showing you 9 games. Today I'm going to start with round 1, which if you were to judge the whole tournament by this game, then yeah, this wasn't a good game. Okay, and I should say that before this game I took a lot of time to prepare. I've been preparing for this tournament for more than a month, and I was working on a whole new repertoire or partially a new repertoire, especially with white, some openings with black as well, and I did a lot of work. And for each opponent I wanted to basically adjust to his style and play into, or allow him to play into my prep. And for round 1 the pairings only got out an hour before the game or something like that, so I couldn't know who I was going to be playing exactly. But since there weren't too many players playing in the field, I could take a guess and calculate. I should also mention that this tournament was played in 3 categories. I'm playing in the highest one, under 2300. It's the Amateur Chess Championship because people over 2300 FIDE weren't allowed to play. And then the 2 lower categories are under 2000 and I think under 1700, although it may be under 1800. I'm not sure. I think it's under 17, under 2000 and under 2300. So I'm playing in the under 2300. Okay, so my opponent in this game, who I thought I was going to be playing him. So I got to play who I was actually preparing for a while, a few hours that is, but still. And he used to play the French defense a lot, and I used to play e4 a lot. And I thought he was going to think I was going to play the London system, which he actually told me after the game that was true. So I decided I was going to play either e4 or the Queen's Gambit. But since he plays the Queen's Gambit himself and has a lot of experience, especially in lines which I'm preparing, the exchange QGD and stuff like that, the positional lines, then yeah, I was probably going to get outplayed. Also, I should mention that he's a very strong player. This rating is just not a real indication of his strength. I believe he finished 5th in the tournament or something like that, in a much stronger field than his rating. He earned, I don't know, close to 100 rating points probably. So I think he's 15, 16, something like that, young and really strong. So yeah, I didn't want to get into that. So I decided to play e4. And I was expecting the French, even though he's been playing the Sicilian lately, I was expecting him to play the French against me. But he played c5. And I knew from some of his games that he plays e6 and the Taimanov Sicilian, but I still played c4, which I knew he was probably going to expect if we get into this position, but I played it anyway because I like the positions. And he played knight c6, and we get into the normal Kramnik Sicilian lines. So d4, c, d, knight f6, knight c3. This is all theory. You can see that on, in the video on the Kramnik. Okay, yeah, and in this position, I've never faced d takes c6. I know it exists. I know it's a move. I just never really studied it because it makes no sense in my mind. It's not a bad move, but okay. So I've always faced bc6, and when he took dc6, I started cursing myself in my head for not looking at all the lines. I mean, this is just laziness on my part, and a good piece of preparation on his. And you take the queen, that much is clear. And now I just had no idea what to do. So in these positions, when white has the Maroczy bind and black has this structure, you always want to play e5. But here, I just couldn't make it work tactically in my head. So I ended up not playing e5. And after the game, he told me e5 is the only move. And I said, well, what happens on knight e4? And we both, he said, I don't know. But I would have played knight d7 because I know that's the correct move. And I said, okay, or knight e4, what do I do? Do I play a3? So I thought, okay, maybe I play a3, give up the pawn for the bishop. And the idea is, and this is actually the line, this is the correct way to play and the best way for white to play, which I never would have done during the game. So bishop takes, pawn takes, knight takes, and now the only move to give white a huge edge is a4. I mean, if you don't know this and you find it over the board, then you are much stronger than me. So knight e4 and now a5. Black should play knight c5 now, and you go bishop g5 check, and this should be plus 1.5 for white, despite white being a pawn down, because this bishop is obviously horrible, and so on and so on. Another move that's actually slightly more popular but less good for white is bishop to d2. This should be equal, and now bishop c3, bishop c3. Obviously, if black takes the pawn on e4, then white should be much better. But yeah, black doesn't take the pawn. In the game, I made a mistake, and I was immediately worse. I played what you usually do when they take with the b pawn. I played bishop d3. This is just defend your pawn. So I did it here as well. And obviously, if black doesn't do anything now, then I'm going to play e5, and I'm going to have a great position structurally, and I'm going to keep all of my pawns. So Luka plays e5. Okay, bishop to d2 and bishop to e6. And now black really wants to play king c7 or king e7, get his rooks to the d file, and my position is already tactically really unsound. If I can somehow put this knight on f3, put this pawn back on c3, then the position is perfectly equal. I would probably like to have white because white can castle, but I don't think it matters at all. It should be equal. With my pawn being a liability on c4 and this diagonal being weak and my rooks being disconnected and my bishops being loose, it's just slightly more comfortable for black to play. And I think from a human perspective, it's impossible for black to go wrong. You can just make normal moves, and white has to be really careful, which is not something you want as white on move 10. Okay, now I have a big decision to make. In my mind, there were 4 moves possible: castle's queenside, castle's kingside, king e2, and knight a4. Knight a4 I wanted to do immediately just to relieve the pressure on my position, but here's the problem. This is a very good piece, and I don't want to be left with this bishop. That being said, if I can play c5, liberating the bishop on d3 and sort of safeguarding the pawn on c4, then that should work. So for example, knight a4, bishop d2, king d2, something like king c7. If I can play c5 and then maybe b3, knight b2, bishop c4, trade off my bad bishop, because he has a pawn on e5, I have a pawn on e4, I would like to trade these bishops now. That could work, but I just didn't like the fact that he is much quicker in the center. My knight is on a4 for some reason. This could be loose, this could be loose. I mean, if his rook gets to d8, I have 2 pawns hanging. So, yeah. Okay. The problem with castle's queenside, in my mind, was knight to g4, which I was going to respond to with rook df1, and then I was looking at bishop c5, and I thought I had to play bishop e1. Now all of a sudden, both of my rooks are on the wrong side of the board. Nothing is controlling the d-file. Black had to be better here, in my mind. Oh, fine, I can chase the knight away, but I still thought black should be better. And that's true, black is better here. King e2 is okay, but I ended up playing castle's kingside. After castle's kingside, on my opponent's level, black is winning. And he proved that very quickly, very convincingly, and just had no issues outplaying me from this position. Just crushed me. So I basically lost the game in the opening because I had no idea what I was doing. I basically played with no prep as if I saw the variation for the first time. I don't believe that has ever happened to me before. So I need to be more careful. Okay, so he plays king e7. Now, knight d5 check doesn't work. If I play knight d5 check and he takes with the pawn, then I win, because takes and bishop check, and after the king moves, I simply pawn up with a winning position. However, after knight d5, he takes knight d5, and I'm completely lost. Of course, if I take the bishop now, he's a piece up. Okay, now again, in my mind, there were 2 options here. You can play rook f-d1 or you can play rook a-d1. I thought I wanted some activity on the f-file in the future, but I really don't. My rook on f1 ended up being a tactical liability, so the correct move by a long stretch was rook f-d1. I played rook a-d1. You're going to see why. And already at this point, he played rook hd8. It's clear that white's position is hard to play. It's not that clear that it's completely lost, but it's actually more than -2. And when he played rook hd8, I'd actually calculated the next 4 moves, and I took a long time here. And yeah, I just played the losing move. Or I went into the losing continuation. So I played bishop e2. He cannot take this pawn. It's not about that. He is going to play rook d4. If he takes, then... if he takes the knight and then takes on e4, I can just take on e5. The critical continuation is rook to d4 and now pawn to a3. Now again, if he takes here and takes here, then this rook is getting chased away. I'm getting the pawn on e5, and white should have a great position, or at least equal. So after a3, there is only one way to play, and that's to simply play rook a to d8 and basically trade this guy for this guy. And I saw all of that. I was calculating all of that. If he plays bishop c5, for example, he's losing because I can just, if bishop c5, I can play bishop e3. If bishop a5, I can even play knight d5 now. And so there's only one move. And I was looking at all of this before bishop e2. So in this position, I'm calculating, okay, bishop e2, rook d4, a3, he cannot play bishop c5, bishop a5, he cannot play bishop c3, and everything's fine. So he plays rook a to d8, I take on b4, he cannot take on d2 because I play knight d5 check. So that was my calculation. So bishop e2, rook d4, a3, rook a d8, I take on b4, and in my mind, he cannot take the bishop because knight d5. Okay? And I thought, okay, but this has to be winning for me. Because, of course, if he takes the knight, then I can just take the rook. And that's it. And then I saw, okay, he has knight f4, attacking my bishop. Okay, so knight d5. Rook to d2, knight f4. Aha, okay, I have rook c2. Defending my bishop, moving my rook away. Everything's fine. And we go into this variation we get to this position, and he takes on d2, and because he's much stronger than me, I just thought he blundered, but I didn't believe it, so I ended up checking the position again. And I didn't see bishop c4 in the end. I just didn't see it. I just missed it. Even if I did see it, there's nothing I could have done at this point. So now I'm just losing. This is now clearly lost. I'm just losing material. So I did play knight d5, rook d2, knight f4, and I thought, okay, I can just go rook c2. Unfortunately, knight e2 check, rook e2, and bishop c4. I just missed bishop c4 when I was looking at a3. And when we reached the position after knight e5, I just missed bishop c4. So in this position, I cannot play rook c2, because if we get into this position, for example, this is just a hopeless rook endgame. Okay, so I ended up playing rook d8, giving up 2 pieces for the rook. Of course, this is lost as well. And we played on for 2 more moves. He played bishop g4, and here I resigned. So I resigned 23 moves into the game, which doesn't happen often, and wasn't a good start. I was actually devastated after the game. The game I played before this one was round 6 of the Pula Open, where I ended up losing to a 1700 player. So I really needed a confidence boost, and not this. But yeah, I managed to pick myself up, and I think I became psychologically stronger after Pula Open. And actually, by the time we got to round 2, which was played the next day, I was feeling much better and managed to play well. Okay, see you tomorrow with an actually, well, not a great game, but a good game. Okay, much better than this. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching. Sorry for the break again. Now I'm going to be recording regularly again, but please understand that for me it's always chess first, channel second. Okay, see you tomorrow. Bye bye.